Dr. Morgan, thank you for taking time to be here with us today. To begin with, I'd like to ask you, how did your involvement start with what is now called the Institute of Gender and Development Studies?
It started a very long time ago through the Women in Development Studies group. And our major concern at that point was to institutionalize gender studies within the mainstream of UWI. And I recall the days when people began just teaching courses, sometimes extra courses, in addition to their work, just to begin to institute gender studies. I believe I was involved in the early teaching of the women's literature courses, and I was studying at that time. My master's thesis and MPhil were both in relation to gender, so I became involved at a very early stage. And also, I believe I was at some point the deputy coordinator of the Women's Studies group, so I was pretty much involved at the beginning.
Yes, you've highlighted the type of activism in academia. So, 20 years after, do you think our university has, one, mainstream gender a lot more, and two, do you think that same effort that you would have had to put out, is it required today to carry forward the gender program?
I think that gender has been mainstreamed a lot more. I recall, for example, in those early days, whenever we got, like if we got a fellowship or so, I remember my head of department saying, well, it's because of that powerful women's group that you're a part of. And that in itself was indicative of the notion that we didn't really have a right to be there, that we were pushing and elbowing our way into a space that was perhaps not it was not approved initially. Now that definitely will not happen. What you have now is a concern that men, right now you have the assumption, and it's often very clearly stated that the best man for the job is a woman. So you have a different kind of issue, and yet in a sense there's a lot more work to be done. I remember the turn when it kind of dawned on us uh, that we were not going to resolve women's issues without dealing with men's issues. And I think somewhere along that pathway there began to be the focus on masculinity studies, and I believe that St. Augustine led took that stream of research forward, masculinity studies coming out of what was initially a women's studies movement.
Yes. Next, do you have any comments on, in terms of the direction of the university, at St. Augustine in particular, but the University of the West Indies in general, all four campuses, where we have been adopting more and more a business logic, and which sometimes articulates the significance of a department or faculty. So, as a member of both the humanities and the Institute of Gender Studies, something which, for some reason, does not get the same, as young people say, the forward necessary, but the valuing. Do you
Yes.
have any comments on this?
I have an interesting approach. The business, the business angle, the money earning angle is not of primary concern to me, even though I know that that is very important. And I do not believe that our strongest currency, or maybe I should say the strongest currency of the humanities and of gender studies, has to do with money. I believe that our strongest currency is bringing a particular wisdom and insight which is desperately needed in the conduct of state affairs. And that currency that we bring, I don't think money can pay for it. So this is why, for example, my latest research has been very concerned with intervention. A long while ago, I decided, looking at images and metaphors and literary structures for their own sake, it wasn't going to pay the bills. And the bills I'm talking about are not monetary bills, but the currency that has to do with understanding our social order, understanding gender constructs, understanding how we need to fix and change and adjust attitudes and assumptions if we're going to create a healthy social order. I believe the currency that we bring is greater than money, and therefore the business model should not simply be focused on dollars.
Yes. And last, As someone who saw the embryonic stages of our institute and as a graduate studies myself, what message would you give to upcoming persons who are interested in feminist and gender scholarship?
I guess the same. There is a way of doing gender scholarship that can look at the surface of things, and there's a way of doing gender scholarship that has to do with its application to pressing social issues, pressing relational issues, and to me, that is the substantial worth and value. You see, I am not hostile to the notion that we are a state university. We are funded by the state. And if the state is funding us, I believe that there is a currency that we can bring to the state that has to do with enhancing the functionality of the citizens. So I would like to see a stronger focus on research that will not simply stay in the library to collect dust, research that can begin to form policy, practice, and other kinds of interventions, research that makes of the students and of the people who read it change agents, because we need that's what we need. And I believe that gender studies, studies in the humanities are ideally placed to bring this kind of intervention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Morgan.